Nobody warned or prepared me about my 40s. Not really. No one wanted to talk about it. And I definitely didn't want to talk about it. So today I'm sharing 3 things I wish somebody would have told me before I got there. Velocity banking. Most people have never heard of it, but it's one of the fastest ways to eliminate debt. It's a concept, and it works. The health shift is real. If you feel like your body is different, like aliens are taking over and nobody's giving you real answers, you're not imagining it. Faith. It's my foundation, not the fallback. I treated faith like a safety net for most of my 30s, checking all the boxes as I hustled through my days. At Salt and Steel, we are not midlife crisising, we are midlife thriving. Simple, strong, resilient living. Follow so you don't miss what's next.
Hi, I'm Amber with Salt and Steel. Thank you for tuning in. So today I wanted to talk about a few things that I wish I would have known in my 30s, going into my 40s. So if you're anything like me, or if you've experienced this, I remember encroaching on 40. I loved my 30s. I was dreading coming out of my 30s. I absolutely loved my 30s. I got married in my 30s. I raised a child in my 30s. I was able to transition into different occupations in my 30s. I just felt like it's like the prime of my life, right? When I was in my 20s, I couldn't wait to get out of my 20s to get into my 30s because I felt like people will probably treat me more of an adult. I'll be a little bit more mature, that kind of thing. I just couldn't wait to get into my 30s. Now, as I encroached on my 40s, yeah, that was a different story. I did not want to get out of the 30s, like I said. So now that I'm in my latter 40s, looking back, I wish there were a few things that I would have understood or been aware of or been brought to my attention before I got into my 40s. And one of those things that I'm just now learning in this year, in 2026, and I'm actually utilizing the concepts, is a concept in finances called velocity banking. It's a concept. It's not just one particular strategy, but I've learned, I was praying, and here's where this is all coming from. You know, in 2018, we sold everything to get out of debt, which was fantastic. We decided to live in a camper, and we lived in a camper, moved to Florida, and was in it for 3 wonderful years in that camper. I loved it. The hardest things about living in a camper and full-time RVing are animals and laundry. I did not struggle too much. I don't remember struggling with food. Anyway, we'll talk about more of that in depth in a future video, but fantastic opportunity. The problem was, as we got out of debt, we had a cushion, but then we didn't have anywhere to go on I would say a lower to medium sized income. Where are you going to invest? How are you going to do these things? And I remember in 18 and 19, just like praying, just like, Lord, what? I don't know what to do now. Like, we don't have debt. So we don't have debt, but we don't have any assets. And that's where I was kind of stuck. And I would think about it and I would ponder it, but I didn't really put a lot of effort into the thought process of it. But then we ended up opening up a martial arts school in 24? Maybe 2 years ago? I can't remember. We opened up a martial arts school. Finally, we invested into a property. So now we've got a property. We have an asset finally. So even to this day, in 2026, we still have that property. Now we have tenants in that property, and we're using that as an asset. Aside from that, which sounds like common sense to most people, is still, what are we doing? You know what I mean? We're not really getting anywhere. Retirements are growing so slow. How are we going to do this? So I got in and did a lot of praying, and I came across a gal named Christy Van with Vantastic, Vantastic Finances. She's a Christian lady. I believe she's in Tennessee, and I've talked to her on the phone, and we've gone back and forth. I have now invested in a program called Money Max to help me take my finances. It's an algorithm that sees my finances specifically and tells me where I need to start putting things. Now, for someone like me, the only debt we have is this property. So it's telling me how to pay down my property. Right now, we are on track to pay off that property that we've had for 2 years, I think 2 years now, in 5.3 years, just on my income, which is not that great when you work for the public sector, but it's income. But I always knew that there was something more that could be done with what I had. I didn't have to go out and work a second job, a third job, find a side hustle and do all these things. And I finally found an answer, and we're implementing some of these practices, and it's starting to work. I'm starting to see that happen. And of course, the more cash flow you have, and that's been the issue. Cash flow has always been an issue. I think a lot of you can relate to that. Is cash flow your issue? Let me know in the comments. I think cash flow is everyone's issue. We've had seasons of life where we haven't made a lot, and we've had seasons where we've made a lot of money, and we blew a lot of money, and we wasted a lot of money, and we did that in our 30s. But now we can fix a lot of those things, and I'm learning those concepts through velocity banking. So I'm not going to go into in great detail in this video, but if you want to learn more about it, go to see Christy at Fantastic, and I'll put a link in the description. But I am utilizing those concepts. I think the biggest takeaway I can say from finances with the velocity banking was I got approved for a personal line of credit. Now, I am not in a HELOC, a home line of credit. A personal line of credit, I learned, is an unsecured line of credit, and I've got it through my credit union. And when I open up my credit union app, I see my checking account, my savings account, and I see an account for my PLOC, my personal line of credit. What the biggest change I've made is I am not utilizing my savings account and just holding money into my savings account. I'm treating my personal line of credit, because it's a revolving line of credit, meaning once I would borrow from it and I pay it off, it stays open. It doesn't close. It's not a loan. It's revolving. So I borrowed against it to purchase our Class B camper van. And even on my middle income, single income, I've been able to pay that off in 3 months without getting an extra job, without any change in my income this year, not getting a side job, a side hustle, or anything, using my current finances, using my Money Max, and that sucker is paid off in 3 months. I know it sounds crazy, but it's a concept, and it's not, like Christy said, it's not magic. It's just numbers. It's all it is. So, I learned these concepts and I'm using it. So now that that's paid off, this Money Max is focusing on our mortgage, and the mortgage is scheduled to be paid off in 5.3 years on my current income, with my current cash flow, with my current situation. And in my opinion, my situation can only improve. I mean, I would expect that my income should be improving in a couple years or whatever, and I'm not always going to be in this position, just like you're not going to be in that position. So velocity banking, I can't believe I did not know about it in my 30s. I don't know how I got behind the 8 ball, but at the same time, I was pondering it, but I really wasn't dialed in focusing. It's only been in the last couple of years I've focused real hard and prayed and asked God. I'm like, I know you can do more with little. You can take little and do much, just like you did the loaves of bread and fish and these things. We don't have to lose our relationship with you just because we can't make over $100,000 a year for whatever reason or beyond. And so I'm learning these concepts through velocity banking, and it's absolutely been a game changer. I sleep better at night. My cortisol levels are down. My hormones can self-regulate a little bit better because I'm not adding this extra financial stress into my life. So look into it, and we will talk more about it in this channel on separate videos. So it's just one of our pillars that we talk about. The other thing that I wish somebody would have sat down and talked to me about, and maybe they did a little bit, my nurse practitioner, when we were back in Branson, we talked about it a little bit, but I kind of maybe arrogantly was like, I'm in such good shape. I have such good health. Like, what are you talking about? I'm in perimenopause. You know what I mean? And, rude awakening. Amber, you've been in perimenopause. Here I am in my later 30s. You've been in perimenopause probably since you were 26 and didn't even realize it. And I'm like, whatever, you know what I mean? I didn't have any of these weird issues, but I'm telling you what, and honestly, I have cruised through my 40s, but something happened last year at the age of 47. There was a shift. There was a coinky-dink, whatever you want to call it, but about 1 year ago, to be a year ago next month, I got stung by an insect, and that threw my health into a tizzy, whether it's Lyme disease, whether it was a reaction, whether it was just coincidence that all this happened at the same time. And full disclosure, men, if you want to click off now, you can, because this is a woman's discussion here. But my periods started to change. My sleep, I could not get enough sleep. I mean, that is very unlike me. I can usually sleep 3 or 4 hours if I have to and run full on throttle the next day and be fine. I couldn't get enough sleep. Bloating started to kick in. I have never ever had a period irregularity. Waking up with absolute pain in my stomach, never have had that, ever. I have had like been blessed with like the easiest menstrual cycle a woman could possibly have from the age of 13, 14 to 47. I really, really, really got fortunate with no issues whatsoever. I mean, nothing. But all of a sudden, I'm having problems, and nobody talks about it. Nobody tells you about all these things. You feel like things are internally shifting, and they are. Your hormones, your reproductive hormones, are going to eventually shift to your adrenals, and that's going to happen. But I think in my naive head, because I've been so healthy, thank God, and I've been extremely active all my life, and I've been able to just stay on top of things. And I incorporated intermittent fasting years ago. I mean, I think probably in my early 30s or close to it, or maybe my mid 30s at the latest. And really that came from biblical things that I was finding, just like if we happen to go into a famine, how are we going to handle that? Is eating 3 times a day practical? What is it do when I fast? You know, exploring all these things, which of course we'll talk about in this channel too. But that shift to health, man, it really threw me for a loop. I ended up having to go to the emergency room, which I never do. And I feared because, and it's probably hard to see, but I have a scar, but there is a spot on my arm here that this is where I got bit. And it took, I mean, I'm stubborn. I would not go to the doctor. But I mean, what got me, that sent me to the ER, was I started getting chronic headaches. Mild enough where I could still sleep, but when I woke up, they were still there, and it concerned me. I'm like, I don't want to get into a stroke situation. I don't want to get into a pulmonary issue, because it's so unusual for me. And I am my best health advocate. I know my body better than anybody, just like you know your body better than anybody. But that concerned me, so I got on a teledoc, and he went through all the questions, and he said, you need to go to the ER now because you've waited too long, and I'm concerned that you might have Lyme disease. So I go to the ER. I have a young doctor who is as arrogant as can be, who stood there in the doorway with his arms crossed and said, why are you even here? And I told him why, and he goes, well, why didn't your teledoc give you a prescription for doxycycline, is what I ended up having to get on. I'm like, because he sent me here to you. He's in another state. And very frustrating with the medical care that I see. And this is where you guys just really, when you know what you know, you take that knowing in your gut and you push through it to get the answers that you need through your doctors. This guy didn't want anything to do with me and couldn't even believe that I was even in his ER, and questioned what, and asked me, he flat out asked me, he goes, why are you here? And I said, because he thinks I have Lyme disease. Why do you think you have Lyme disease? Because I answered yes to all the questions when he surveyed me on my assessment. That's why. He gave me a prescription, shoved me out the door, and then of course I get a nice bill in the mail for terrible customer service, terrible bedside manner, and terrible, luckily the doxycycline worked on it. But last year I typically do 72-hour 3-day fast. I skipped it because doxycycline wipes out your immune system anyway, and I didn't want to do any more harm. I wanted my body to naturally come back. So once I got off the doxycycline and the symptoms of Lyme disease left me, then it was trying to focus on, why am I still tired? Why are my periods so irregular? I mean, I've had to track them for months. Why does it feel like my insides are trying to come to the outside? Why does it feel like things are dropping? Meaning, like, why does my upper digestive system feel like it wants to go down? Like, it's a constant battle. And so it's been an absolute, let's stop and pause, and let's try to get these things under control. So I've talked to a couple nurse practitioners about biodynamic hormones, and I've learned some things. I've learned that once you even get on bioidentical hormones, that it teaches your body to shut off. Well, I struggle with that because I want my body to do what God made it to do. And I understand that my hormones are trying to shift from here to over here now, and we're going to basically abandon the reproductive system. I get that, but it's this in between of what to do. So I have resisted going on a hormone replacement therapy. I know a lot of women have and feel like they absolutely are a new woman, and that is fantastic. My long-term future concepts on that, I'm not convinced that maybe is the right choice for me at this time. because I don't want to teach my body to stop doing what God created it to do. So that's kind of where we are with this. Maybe I'm fortunate. It hasn't happened until the age of 47. I know a lot of women who are going through this in their later 30s and early 40s. And we're going to thrive, and we're going to find a way through it. We're going to figure it out. So the two biggest changes I've made, and we'll get into these in future videos too, is if I want to have bread or anything to do with flour, I'm milling my own flour. And I am also using a high phenolic olive oil as a supplement. I'm not cooking with it per se. It's actually, I'm taking it as a supplement. And that's been a game changer with my cholesterol, and that's been a game changer with everything else. I don't take multivitamins. The only vitamin that I take, and I thought it was garbage, but it's not, because blood test results do not lie, but I was deficient in vitamin D, and I take a vitamin D capsule every day. And for 2 years now, no deficiency in vitamin D. Yes, we live in Florida and you get this and that, but it's really not enough. So that being said, I've been very blessed. Thank you, Jesus, that I've had good health. Yes, I've struggled with some blood pressure issues, but the milled flour and the olive oil have helped with that too. My blood pressure now goes back to normal. It doesn't take much for it to elevate, but for me, it's going to be more the environmental cortisol levels that are going to affect it more than anything. And then dialing in down on a keto carnivore style diet. So do I still incorporate my fun stuff? Absolutely I do. But I have to be more cognizant. In my 30s, I could be a turkey. And to a certain degree, I can still be kind of a turkey now. But, you know, I got to look at long term and kind of where I'm at now on things. So things are shifting in my body. I think if my body wasn't feeling the shift so much, and maybe it's a blessing in disguise, maybe I would still be doing some of those extra things in my 30s that I enjoy more often. Maybe. But now that my focus has come back to my body, that's kind of where my attention is, and paying attention to what's going on. And I don't know, I just don't have those conversations. The conversations I'm having now are with women my age. And the consensus we're coming to is like, my mother barely talked to me about my period when I got it at, I think it was 13 or 14. I have a twin sister, so she got it first, and it was a year later before I got mine. And we don't remember much of a conversation. I remember I'm still kind of a tomboy, and Mom took me to the store and bought me baseball cards, because at that time I was collecting baseball cards, and the bleeding's going to stop, and then it'll pick up again, as this is how your life's gonna be for most of your life. And that's really the extent of it. We didn't talk about it amongst friends much. I remember girls in high school having to not come to school because they were cramping so bad. Like I said, I was fortunate I didn't have a lot of that, and I've been very fortunate. I don't have any endometriosis or any of those issues. I don't have those problems. But now here we are and deep into perimenopause, and nobody talks about it. No one told me about it except for my nurse practitioner when I was in my late 30s. Like, you're in perimenopause. Well, what's that supposed to mean? Well, things are starting to change. Well, what's that supposed to mean? And what does that entail? And ignoring that conversation until last year when I got bit by an insect, and now my periods are changing, and my body just wants to stay bloated and feel bloated all the time, no matter what I do. You know, the best thing that I have done is not eat for 3 days, and that's when all my bloating will go away. But it's to manage it, because you can't do that. You cannot not eat. You have to have nutrition. So we're finding out what's going to work in this time and what's not going to work. So health. I wish somebody would have talked to me in my 30s what to expect with this perimenopause stuff. A little bit more specific than just a random term that we throw out there. And it wouldn't have been such a shock to my system now that I'm starting to walk through some of these things that they talk about. So I've got on, I know I said I only take vitamin D, but I have incorporated ashwagandha and magnesium what is that? Oh, it's the one that people will use for sleep, but it doesn't make me sleepy. But those two, I get them from Transparent Labs, but I take that twice a day, and that has absolutely been a game changer in my energy. It's why I've been able to think about starting this channel back up and getting after it, because my energy's back, my focus is back. I felt like I was maybe getting Alzheimer's because I was forgetting things. I was walking around with a foggy brain all the time. I can be feisty, and I felt like my fight was gone. And all these things make you feel like maybe you're getting dementia, or maybe you have Alzheimer's, even though it doesn't run in your family, but maybe you are the one. And all these things. Perimenopause will mess with your head, not just with your body, but with your head. So once you can get a hold of that and get some strategies going, especially when you're in your later 30s, like, you need to know about this kind of stuff. That way you're not caught off so much off guard with it. And it is a struggle. Yeah, it's a struggle. It's just your body is trying to end something here and go into something new. Just like you were when you were getting your period. It's the same concept that nobody likes to talk about or wants to talk about or get very detailed with it. So I wish somebody would have talked about that to me in my 30s. And then lastly, my relationship with Jesus. I became a Christian, an actual saved Christian, when I was 19. I got rebaptized right before I got married when I was 31. I didn't get married until I was in my early 30s, so not very traditional that way. And felt like, as a new Christian in my 20s and then going into my 30s, like, man, I had my checklist of things I was going to do. I'm like running and gunning, and we're doing these things, and going to church was just a checklist. Volunteering was a checklist in the church, or doing some of these fundraiser things, just a checklist. And in my 40s, looking back into my 30s, I wish I could have kind of flip-flopped it a little bit. So what I'm doing different in my 40s and my 30s is I spend a lot more time with Jesus. We pray a lot. I walk and talk with him in the mornings. We pray over every meal. I run everything by him as if he's my best friend and my mentor. Finances, the velocity banking concept. Every day we're maneuvering through the health side of it. And then just talking about the present and the future and what we can look forward to, and how do I lead these people in my day, that at my work? How do I lead this stewardship thing you've given to me to glorify you and to move your purpose forward, not mine necessarily? And it's flip-flop. Like I said, in my 30s, it was a bunch of checklists. But in your 30s, you're doing things different. I mean, yeah, I got married in my early 30s, but I was also raising a kid. I inherited a daughter, and so I had her, and I became a parent, instant wife, instant family, that kind of thing. And everything can be a little bit overwhelming. And I changed careers a couple times in my 30s. So it all the things they say not to do before you get married, or if you're considering marriage, I did it. It was rough at times, but it was also the best experience that I could have had, that absolutely deepened my growth with Jesus. Took me through some trials and tribulations that have been absolutely priceless for me in my faith walk, and hopefully will be words of wisdom for somebody else who's walking through similar seasons. So in my 30s, I wish I would have slowed down. I wish I would have just said, hey, everything's okay. Just pause, take a deep breath. I know you've got to run the kid here, and you got to do this there, and you said to this person you were going to do this, but just stop. Pray about it, think about it, and just settle your mind and your spirit. I wish I would have done that a little bit more. So instead of just trying to check all the boxes all the time, because the 30s get away from you pretty quick. And I'm learning that the 40s can do the same thing, even when children are out of the house. And again, you have shifts in your age group in your 40s. There's still ladies in their 40s that are raising kids. My twin sister's still raising kids. She's got an 11 and 12-year-old. So we're all in different seasons. Mine just looked at and unfolded a little bit different than maybe other people's, but in a lot of ways that concept can still be applied now, and I want to keep that going forward. So when distractions shift and change, or your responsibilities or your obligations, that relationship, if I could have gone back and nurtured that a little bit stronger, especially in my 20s and 30s. But again, I needed to grow up, and I needed to understand some things. And just because your age, says you're a certain thing, doesn't mean you're emotionally, spiritually there. And so I was growing up still in my 30s and 40s, but I wish somebody maybe could have guided me a little bit better in my 40s. But then again, I was stubborn too. So I had my own ambitions. I had my own goals and objectives that I was trying to get to personally and professionally. And sometimes it's hard to hear things like that. It probably was said at some point, and I just ignored it because I was blinded by my own ambitions and my own selfish things that I wanted to do. So these are just some things I wanted to share with you as we're progressing through and we're moving to these next levels of life. There are things that come up, and I hope that we can relate on some level with it. And if so, drop me comments. Let me know what you're going through. Let me know what's working for you. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've got perimenopause all figured out, because I don't. I'm walking through the journey right now when you're going along with me. So the days like yesterday, I woke up and I felt foggy headed for a day and tired. Now today, I woke up a little tired, but not so foggy headed, and I feel great. I feel like I could go for a run, but I'm not going to go for a run. Today is my day off from working out, and it's really hot outside. So, I mean, I'm being a little bit smarter on how I approach my workouts and my physical activity as opposed to my 20s. I mean, I can go there. I can still rock it with them if I want to, but why? Do I need to? No, not necessarily, but I could, and you could too. So don't forget that. You can. So, but thank you for coming along with this video with me. Let me know in the comments what you're going through, and maybe some things that you wish somebody would have told you in your 30s, as you're getting out of your 30s into your 40s. A mentor, what did they tell you? I'd like to know, because I'm still wanting to learn and have wisdom. So thank you guys for coming along, and just remember, stay simple, strong, and resilient living here on Salt and Steel. All right, bye.